Hello everyone. We are pleased to have Mr. Srinivas with us. He's an alum of IIM Kozhikode and he's from the 2005 batch. And Srinivas has worked at Morgan Stanley he was the VP at Morgan Stanley for 4 years. And prior to that he was the AVP at JP Morgan. And prior to that he was at Royal Sundaram Allied Insurance. And Srinivas took the entrepreneurial plunge in May of 2019 when he decided to co-found Vitraya Technologies, which tries to bridge the gap between hospitals and insurance companies. We're pleased to have you at the campus, Srinivas.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we have a few questions for you.
Yeah.
So did you have entrepreneurship in mind when you were considering your early career choices?
I actually did have entrepreneurship in mind, although I was not 100% confident at that time. When I look back, it all added up for me. So I joined as a business analyst, and I was also working on pre-sales in my first job after the campus. And the way I went about my career was to gain pieces that will give me confidence. Actually, for me, the way I took a decision to take the plunge was building my confidence internally. For me, I needed to gain experience in different pieces of what I wanted to do to build a product. So I worked in several areas of product development lifecycle on the ground, gathering knowledge, and I worked on several domains and picked pieces of what will help me build those building blocks. And then over the last 3-4 years, I was more confident that I'm ready for plunge. You can never be perfectionist. You cannot gather all the pieces, but you need enough pieces that will give you the confidence. So for me, yeah, the initial career choices I took were all about that. I worked in Covances. Then I was in a kind of a software company which builds solutions, does services for the customers. I moved on to the customer side, understanding the internal businesses of the customers, and then I picked up various product development lifecycle pieces through my career.
Right.
So, yeah.
So continuing on, how has your time at Royal Sundaram helped you choose the idea for your business currently?
Yeah. So one of the important steps I took was to move to one of those companies which doesn't have this glitz and glamour, and it was a very important career choice for me. It fit into my scheme of things, wherein I wanted to gain experience of doing something large scale at the company level, and the role was a program management, project management kind of a role, which was going to define the complete business process of an insurance company, and it completely excited me. I had to kind of face the board regularly, and there was a lot of learnings of implementation, how to implement and how to follow it through, and how to take the feedback, so on and so forth. And in the process, I also gathered the knowledge of the domain of insurance, so yeah, it was. I wouldn't say that was kind of the sole inspiration for my idea, the domain I picked, for the area where we wanted to start up. But it was an important input where we were looking for, okay, is this a domain where we can apply our thought process on? It was an important piece of the puzzle for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you walk us through your time at JPMC and Morgan Stanley?
Yeah. So at JP Morgan, so I was on the product management side, mainly liaising with the technology and operations teams. And it's a huge organization. There's a lot to learn. And through my work experience at JP Morgan, I worked with various geographies, starting from US, various parts of US, to Scotland, to England people, to Chinese, Hong Kong, Japanese, Australian, New Zealand, Latin American, Brazilians, and I happened to meet them in person, and it helped me absolutely understand the people angle of how the upbringing of various people really defines their approach of going about a project or thinking about a solution for a problem. So that was one aspect, and then JP Morgan provided a complete ecosystem of what can be possible in the financial services world. But there are other things, JP Morgan being a huge organization, it takes time for you to establish yourself, and sometimes for you to unleash yourself and gain freedom. A huge organization can become a bottleneck. So at Morgan Stanley, it had a kind of a similar atmosphere, both of them being Wall Street banks. Morgan Stanley, in my experience, is more of a Wall Street bank than a JP Morgan. So it comes with all the goods and bads. So one of the things about my experience at Morgan Stanley is basically the focus on execution and getting results, and there is a bit of your traditional concepts of job security goes off when you work in a Wall Street bank. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So for me in my journey, that was important part, because job security, the idea of job security, the way I was thinking about changed when I knew my job could go any day. Right? Then the decision to go for entrepreneurship, one of the biggest bottlenecks got addressed for me. So and other than that, both the companies are huge oceans. So I gained at JP Morgan, I gained experience in banking, corporate banking, custody, fund administration, some of these PE fund related products I worked on, and at Morgan Stanley I worked in wealth management area. It manages around $2.3 trillion worth of money as a part of the wealth management business. So in a way, some of these experiences helped me prepare a worldview, and internally also I was able to conquer some of my bottlenecks for me to take a plunge for entrepreneurship. So that's about it. Yeah.
So why leave Morgan Stanley and start your own venture?
Yeah. so yeah, it's a tricky question. So yeah, you crave to be a VP at Morgan Stanley, and then you will start craving to be a ED at Morgan Stanley, executive director. Then you will start craving to be an MD at Morgan Stanley, managing director. Then you will start craving to be an executive VP. There's something called executive vice president, right? Then you'll start craving to be an CXO at Morgan Stanley. Then you will start craving to be a CEO at Morgan Stanley. Then you will start craving to be the president of United States, right? Then you will start craving to be something else. So it's a never-ending thing. So for me, that craving ended with what I achieved as a vice president. So honestly, when I was an AVP at JP Morgan, that still didn't give me liberty enough. So one of the things about these big organizations is you can be entrepreneurial, right, despite the setup and the constraints it brings in, a lot of compliances you have to meet with and all. In your small team, you can create a kind of an entrepreneurial vibe and do things your own way. So I used to operate that way. So to me, I needed some sort of autonomy to execute my plans, to execute projects the way I wanted to execute, and those were quite possible at the level of a vice president. And the further journey needed me to get into a complete, getting into the scheme of things of how that company works, how Wall Street works, and you need to get in line. You cannot be rebellious. You cannot think of overthrowing certain policies and all day one. Overnight you cannot do. You need to get into the system, work your way up, and then do the thing. So beyond a point, it did not make sense for my personality to work there and not work well for myself, not doing justice to the organization I was working for. So, and then the entrepreneurial dream was there for a long time for me, and so one of the things that worked for me was when I absolutely made up my mind that I really need to start up, that's when actually opportunities started coming my way. I started talking to people, and my intention was coming clear that yeah, he is serious. He is actually serious, because you see a lot of people throwing out ideas saying, oh, you know what, I want to start up, but then others can see through you, right? Is he really serious? Is she really serious? Can they really run the marathon? Can they face the challenges? Can they innovate? Can they rise up to the occasion? That kind of a thing. But once you have thought through internally, and for me it was a journey of 10 plus years. For some other people it might be a journey of 2-3 months. For somebody it might be a journey of 25 years. So there is no specific time for it. You have to work through your internal journey, and then it will reflect when you talk to somebody. So yeah, so one other reason behind me leaving that VP position was also that it was clear in my head, and then opportunities started coming my way. I started attracting co-founders who had similar thinking, and things moved ahead. Yeah.
Right. So moving on to Vitraya, so how serious is the trust problem in the health insurance industry?
Yeah, so that's actually absolutely serious. So the health insurance particularly is basically, you have the insurers on one side and you have the hospitals on the other side, and they work with their own objectives. The insurance company, while they are obliged to settle the claim for the policies for which the policyholders have paid a premium for, they want to make sure they are paying only what is needed, because their business will not be sustainable if they pay for any and every claim which they have not underwritten for. Now when it comes to the hospitals, they want to make profits, and they also want to satisfy customer. So the main problem is trust in this industry, wherein and it's not just you and me saying this. You go to an insurer, you talk to that person. You go to a hospital administrator or a hospital CXO, they will actually openly say trust is the biggest problem here. So so they welcome ideas, at least the genuine ones at the top, even the middle management, they welcome ideas because they know they cannot trust the other party. So, and there is a method to building the trust, right? You cannot just say, okay, that guy trusts me, now you trust you, now you trust me, right? So it cannot be that way. You have to build a kind of a platform. You have to show some mechanism, some technology that is being applied at the back end that builds trust, and that goes down to the minute details of why trust is not built. Like, are you not satisfied with the way the pricing is done at the hospital end, and at the hospital end, are you not satisfied with the transparency of which policy covers what, up to what extent? So now you pick pieces of each of these things, and you solve, and you then bring them to the table, and you make them a features within your product set. That's how we are going about it. Yeah.
Right. So one of the serious questions that any startup faces is, how do you choose your co-founders or an entrepreneur? How do you choose your co-founders, and how many co-founders is the right number of?
So we had specific lessons in our journey actually. So 2 years ago, 2 years ago was when I decided that I needed to start up on my own. And the first thing I did was I started calling up people whom I thought have achieved something in this area, or who has some advice to give me, and I let aside any ego issues or whatever, and just pick up the call and talk to people saying, okay, this is what I have decided, I need your advice, and so on and so forth. And then I called up my classmate and hostelmate from IIT Madras, who had a reasonably successful startup career, and who was at a CXO level in one of the wallet companies in India, purely for seeking advice. and by the time, and we spoke 15 years after, after we kind of said bye to each other at the campus. And by the end of that one phone conversation, we both decided that we'll start up together. So this might be a lesson for IIMK folks. Trust your friends. Some of these are going to be big shots, and they are going to value you. If you think you are not there, they are going to know your potential than anybody else outside. So that was the way we formed the first co-founder team, two of us. And then we started going about, we started documenting our product idea, and we started reaching out to the marketplace, and started trying to reach out to investors as well and all. Then at one point we realized that we needed a third co-founder who can absolutely do the development of the, our original idea was, okay, we'll hire developers and get the product developed. But the biggest learning for us, at least the team of two of us, it didn't work that way for us. We even tried to talk to some other startups, tech startups, who had some set of developers with them, and they were willing to contribute. Saying, oh, you outsource the development portion to us, and you guys can go ahead with your ideas. But what we realized is, unless you have a person who is completely bought into the idea, and he's also living and breathing the idea like you both are doing it, for us at least it was not possible to go ahead with this kind of an outsourcing model. Then thankfully we bumped into somebody who we felt absolutely got it, absolutely understood, and liked and had the same opinions on how we are perceiving the market and our approach of solving the market's problem. And at that time, then one of the biggest realization for us was, don't be so possessive of the equity. When it matters that for the company's growth and survival, you need somebody to get in, you have to just do it. So yeah, but and then things started moving. Then we realized, at least at this stage, we are good with 3 co-founders. But then we are open at a later stage, if we think for us to go to the next level, we need somebody else forming, leaving the title and tag aside, right? There is a role a co-founder performs, wherein you're not working in silos, right? I have I head the product in our startup, but then I'm a co-founder, which means I own the company, right? So the buck stops with me. So the 3 of us play that role. So there can be a 4th person who needs to play that role. We are open to that. But then that 4th person has to fit into the scheme of things, and the 4th person has to absolutely live and breathe our idea. So yeah, these were our learnings on how to go about choosing the right set of co-founders. Yeah.
So how difficult has it been to fundraise for your startup? Because that is one of the biggest challenges any startup faces.
Yeah. So on one hand, my friend who heads the business side in our startup, so he is well networked. So for us, getting an entry into some of the fund houses or some of the angels and all was not that difficult. So I will not be able to talk about that. Although I faced that in my earlier attempt at startups. By the way, I made two attempts earlier while I was still working. So I faced that problem earlier, particularly because we are asking for angel and seed level investing. Everything cannot be, you cannot put a formula to why this disruptive technology can change the market. So there we were facing some challenges. So the way we went about then was basically angel funding route, wherein certain people among friends and families, friends of friends and all, there was a kind of a frequency match, who have some sort of passion and gut feeling, and they can very well within 1 or 2 conversations make up their mind whether this makes sense or not.
who believe in the company.
who believe in the company, and they have a inner instinct.
Right.
So some of them would have turned us down after one meeting, but at least within one meeting,
Right.
that his way of thinking or her way of thinking is different. So we met up. We were fortunate to meet up with certain such individuals who kind of got it, and they also understand that I cannot now make this co-founders sit in front of me and answer 1,000 questions I have, right? They ask high level questions, and they know you need some money, you need some investment, you need some team to show the proof of concept and to take things forward. So we realize we need to target the right kind of investors who are willing to participate, and they gave us certain contacts who could help us with networking to gain sales momentum, etc. So yeah, those were our learnings, and now we are at a stage where we are engaging with the venture capitalists. So we are hoping to close around with the venture capitalists. So yeah, these are in a nutshell some learnings for us on the funding aspect. Yeah.